These two areas I would like you to discuss in the context of the dematerialization of something that I wanted and was allowed and that I love and appreciate that's might cease to exist in my experience, my home. And I guess my question is, what do you do when your allower stops allowing, if that's our relationship? And also, and I'm going to quit talking after this, you once said on a tape a few months ago, I lose track of time, that somebody was going to lose their house or something like that, and you said many of you, or the majority of you, or most of you would be much happier if you didn't have the responsibility of a house. And so that keeps coming into my head because I was struck by that.
It isn't just the responsibility of the house. In the disintegration of something wanted, there is a renewed desire for it. And that renewed desire moves much more energy through you that is very life-giving in nature. So that what we say is, if all of you, when you went home today, your homes had blown away. Don't worry, they haven't. But if you went home and your homes had blown away, you would be happier in the days and weeks and months to follow than you would be if you went home and everything was normal. Because it causes more focus of desire. There's all this fresh new stuff pouring through you. It's like opening these spaces to new allowance. And, of course, in light of what we've been talking about here today, there is the potential of having agony in that, but there is the potential of having ecstasy in that, depending upon how much worrying about the past or how much justifying about why it had happened you're doing, which is holding you apart from letting it in. So often as physical creators, you come to identify yourself as a creator by your creations. And so you create money, or you create a car, or you create a mate, or you create a house. And then there's this tendency to begin to identify yourself as the creator who is the holder of all of these creations. And over time, you can't find yourself amongst all that you've amassed. So what we want to help you to do, and we think it is a very positive aspect of what you're living here, is to recognize that, let's say that you're in a situation where you're struggling as you first come together. And then your rockets of desire go out and you allow in the resources to satisfy that strong desire. And you say, oh, we're on our way. And then something happens and another rocket of desire goes off within you, and you find through trial and error ways to allow it. And so your life gets steadily better, meaning you get feeling steadily more confident, you get feeling freer all the time, you carry with you less resistance that you would call carrying what other people think. And in the process of all of that too, you gather stuff, you gather remnants or examples or evidence of your successes. The thing that we most want you to hear is that if every one of those pieces or remnants of that success was gone from you, still you stand as the culmination of all that you've learned. And we don't mean learned in the sense that now you know how to do it again. We mean you have been the creation that has been in the process of being created, and here you stand as this now clearer, more focused wander and clearer, more focused allower than you've ever been before, which means you can take your next breath of desire and step into your next place of allowing, and all that you ever had and 10 times more can be in your experience immediately when you accept that you are the asker and the receiver and the letter in of all of that, you see. There is tremendous advantage. We see so many people that have stuff or have remnants or acknowledgments of their successes, and it isn't until something happens and all of that goes away that they really step in to letting themselves receive all that they can. And we're not just talking about receive all that they can in terms of feeling good, we're talking about more stuff too. What's happening now? Where are you now?
We're mixed. Well, I'm always reaching for a thought that feels better. So instead of feeling sad or upset about the house...
Are you living in an apartment now?
No.
Are you still in the house?
Yeah, we're thinking about, we're doing all kinds of work on the house that we never did for years to sell it. which is very weird because we're having fun doing the work on it, but we're doing it to sell it.
So you're putting the house on the market, but it has not been sold.
Next month.
So we're actually having this sort of anxiety attack. We're giving it bigger words in advance. In other words, you haven't actually moved out of the house yet. You're just anticipating. In other words, you're still grappling with the decision.
No, it's the choice we've made. Although if something pops project-wise, we don't have to sell the house. We could choose to sell it. We don't have to. Right now we feel like we have to. And I have a feeling that the relief that was felt about both of us agreeing, yeah, we'll sell the house if we have to sell the house.
All right, now, so as you think about releasing the house, and you think about someone else having the house, and you think about the financial relief that you'll have, and you think about the extra dollars that you'll have, and you think about maybe the change of lifestyle you'll have, and you think maybe about some of the freedom of, for a while, maybe not having so much yard and gardens to tend to, and you think about an environment that will be beautiful, and you think about all of your lovely things, and you think about making the new nest. In other words, we know that you can bring yourself into a place of feeling pretty good about it. And as you think about the environment that it might be in, and you think about all of the other things that you still like to do, and you think about how most of what's happening in your world will still be the same. In other words, you'll still have the same connections with friends, and you'll still have the same, in other words, you're not moving to Alaska or to some other place. You're going to be living in the same general area. So as you reach for these feelings that feel pretty good, now you're pretty much on the right track. But let's say that you are standing in your kitchen one day and you are working on something and you've redone it and it's more beautiful than it's ever been, and you have the thought, we wouldn't do this for ourselves so that we could enjoy it, but we are willing to fix it up so that somebody else will then want it, and you have this pang of discomfort because it's something that bothered you the whole time you lived there and you didn't fix it, and so you have that pang of discomfort. It is in that moment that you are now not letting it in. Not letting what in? Not letting in the abundance, not letting in the buyer for the house, not letting in your well-being, not letting in your clarity. So you stop and you just laugh about it, and you say, well, I suppose that's the way it always goes. And then you stand and you feel appreciation for all the fun you've had in the kitchen and all the parties you've had with folks around and all the pleasure it's brought you, and you bring yourself to a more soothing place, and then you acknowledge, I'm ready to move on from here. I'm ready to move on. Now, we think the thing that is sort of stuck in your craw a little bit is that it feels different, as you started to say to us, when you're moving on and, in your estimation, up to something that you believe that you are choosing. But this doesn't feel like moving on and up. This feels like moving on and down. In other words, instead of moving up to a bigger, better house of your choosing, this feels like letting go of something and going to something less. And the way we would bridge that is by saying, we've been ready to move on. This is moving on, not up, not down. We're moving on. We're moving forward. We're expanding into new experiences. This is not less. This is more. That's what your mate is wanting to say to you, that it is a more experience. It is not a less experience. This is not stepping back. This is not slipping. This is moving on. And so as you use that as a sort of bridge, we're moving on. Now, what does moving on mean? Jerry and Esther were laughing about it because they keep building another building back in Texas. There's more going on back there all the time as they're expanding and getting ready for more expansion. And yet Jerry and Esther are moving around in a 40-foot long container that is not very much space. They were telling friends the other day, we have 4 towels with us, and we have 4 glasses with us, and we have 4 plates with us. Even though there's all that other stuff, it doesn't seem relevant to our life experience. And the having of it or the not having of it is irrelevant to this moment in time because we're in our monster bus and we're moving on. In other words, you get a sense of what we were talking about? It is our promise to you that you are moving on. In other words, your life experience is becoming more expansive. And you're hearing something new even in this dialogue here today about being in the receiving mode. And you don't have to figure it out. Don't try too hard to, and we think this is the biggest sticking point for you, don't try too hard to see your experience through anyone else's eyes because they could not begin to understand it. See yourself as a sort of adventurer. You know those adventurers that put on a layer of clothing and put something on their back and take everything that they're going to need with them and go off for adventure, and you think, how could they possibly do that? And we say they're on their way to more adventure than anyone will ever have in the nest of accumulated stuff, you say.
It feels very similar to when we first came together and we were sort of braving, horizons together.
Well, there's a big difference. You know much more than you knew then. Your vibration is in a whole different place than it was then. Your wanting is sharper than it was then. Your desire is broader than it was then. At that time, your desire was more about things and more about things that represented success. And now your desires are more about joy. They're more about the expansiveness of self. It's more about the adventure than it is the accumulation. And we are not suggesting that there will not be plenty of accumulation. We think a whole new batch of accumulation is on the doorstep for you. But we think that this, in answer to part of your first question, it is a creation. In other words, this is coming in response to lots of things that you've been asking for. As you relax and just sort of feel a feeling of whimsy about it and begin to say things like, well, I don't know where the idea came from about doing this, but it felt so right to us. We must be on the right track. So let's just follow through with it. Let's take a chance, so to speak, and follow this impulse and see where it goes. Let's see what the universe has in store for all of the things that we've been asking for. And just sort of approach it from this newfound adventure of moving on. We're moving on. And your friends may say, well, what does that mean? And you say, we don't really know. It means more. It means different. It means expansion. It means more fun. It means more opportunities. It means standing in different spaces and therefore thinking different thoughts and therefore attracting different things. It means more life.
So when you said to me years ago, make more decisions, can you give me some examples? Because decision, I think we have to define the word.
This is exactly what this is about. You've said it even better than we can. People tend to get into their nests with all decisions all made around them. They have their stuff, and they don't make very many decisions beyond. In other words, those decisions are sort of already made. So there's not the feeling of moving on. Now you are in that place where you will be making many, 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 many more decisions. We still feel some mixed emotions within you, mixed desires within you about what you really want in terms of a house. We see it with Esther too. Sometimes when she thinks about all of the people she loves, she wants this great, great, great big space. She wants a space with a kitchen that is big enough that 15 people can cook at the same time. She wants a space where lots of people can be comfortable and move about. And on another day, when she is just wanting to close it up to get ready to go on the road, she wishes she lived in an apartment. In other words, sometimes she wants the space to be enormous. Sometimes she wants the space to be small. And what we say to her on a regular basis is, the universe is full of space and it can accommodate you with anything that you want. What you are wanting to be is a happy person in whatever space you are in. The space itself is irrelevant. Whether you own it is irrelevant. Whether you rent it for an hour is irrelevant. In other words, isn't this a lovely space? No one in this room owns it. Everyone in this room is benefiting from it. You get a sense of it? Mm-hmm. And so spaces and things, all those are focal points in which you can be who you are. But being who you are, this happy individual, is the only thing that matters. And all that other stuff is truly irrelevant.
So then give no more thought to how did some disallowing come about? I'm really perplexed about that.
We would spend no time on any of that. In other words, we would say, we're moving on. This is the answer to many things that we've been asking for. It will sharpen our relationship. It will give us more things to think about. It makes us more together. It has brought back the spirit of the beginning of our relationship together. In other words, it's the answer to so many things that you've been asking for. This is not miscreation. This is moving on. Your creative genius, focused in what we see as the most expansive, exciting time-space reality that has ever been a creative place. We encourage you to let contrast do its natural work and feel the joyous expansion of the new desire within you. And then lovingly bring yourself into vibrational harmony with that desire. All of the words that we offer tend to make it sound much more complicated than it is. You intuitively know that you want to feel good. And when you make the personal decision to give yourself permission to feel good, then we think everything will finally fall into place for you. And as far as we're concerned, we think it's time for you to give yourself permission to thrive and to expand and to have joy. We think it's time for you to allow all of the things that you want, all of the relationships that you want, all of the splendor that you want, all of the fantastic ideas that you want. In other words, there's no reason that you should not be the full receiver of all things that you desire, other than that one little habit you have of doing that thing you do.